you get a PDF. If it's a book chapter, you get a PDF. Okay, and that's how it works. And the other thing I want to mention about interlibrary loan is, in addition to getting the materials on campus, outside our campus, like we don't have, we also do another kind of service. It's called document delivery. It's only available to you, our graduate students, and our faculty members. And the document delivery, which means that, if you need something, it's in the library. For example, you need a book, but you don't need the whole book. Especially for scholarly monographs, sometimes you only need a chapter, okay? And in that case, you feel like you don't want to come to the library, get the book, borrow the whole book, because it takes a lot of time. You send an interlibrary loan request. Actually, it's a document delivery request. And we will get a copy of that particular chapter for you and send you through PDF, through the interlibrary loan, and it's a PDF. Okay, so that will save you time. Another thing I get a lot of question about when I was at the resource table is how many items you can have at one time from the library. The number is 250. So I always recommend people build a small library in your personal library, okay? Either your apartment, okay, or in your office. And how long can you have the material? It's for the whole semester. If nobody else wants it, you can renew them, okay? So the library have millions of items. We're not afraid you borrow materials from us. And another thing I want to mention is about technology training, okay? The library offers all kinds of technology training. I just quickly give you a look over here. This is what we have, I think, in August. Have some trainings, and you just sign up and see what you want to do. And if you wanted to see a spectrum of the software we train, and then you can go to the course catalog just to take a look, okay? And it's very easy to sign up, and I personally get trainings from there at times. Like I got trained on the advanced Excel, okay, just to improve my own skills. And we all have skills in different, some areas I'm good. But take a look at this, and I find the quality of the training is truly excellent. It's not because I'm from the library I say that. It's truly very good, okay? And another part of the things I want to mention is about our research services, okay? The library's research services is relatively new, and now we have two teams of librarians work together. One is we just call the research team, and there are 4 librarians. And also the other one, there's another 4 librarians, they work together. We call it Digital Research Commons, okay? They offer trainings and software in around many different areas. And what they cover is throughout your research process, from gathering data, analyzing data, data management, data analysis, data visualization, and you can think of, and if you want the details, just come to this page and take a look. Okay, they offer workshops, and also they have a list of workshops and upon request. Okay, and they are not listed here yet because the semester hasn't started, but they will be here very soon. So just keep your eye open and then see what we offer. And if you just want to talk to a librarian specializing in certain area, and you can request a consultation or you can request a workshop. Just go online and we'll receive your email and get back to you immediately. So that's another way we support services, and I highly recommend you go back here and check what we have. And another area I want to talk about is the space. and the rooms at the library. Okay, the library. If you walk in there, it's I think when you just walk in there, you don't feel like it's huge. But if you go in there and just enter it, look on your left, keep looking, you will find it's huge. Okay, the library is developed over the years, and when you just walk in, that area is called red wing, and on the left side you will see blue wing, and you keep looking, it's brown wing. Okay, and each wing has different levels. Blue wing has 8 levels, brown wing has 5 levels, and the red wing only have 3 levels. And all these areas, which means that those are your areas. Okay, we have the library not for the librarians, okay? We are here because of you. So just consider the whole space is yours, although you share that with other students, of course. And the library actually have zones. And I think we got many complaints about how noisy the library is, okay? And because if you just walk in, the library is very noisy because it's a popular spot on campus. But the library have zones. There are, we call it business zone, and we have silence zone as well. Okay, so we have maps over there. You can find the quiet area for yourselves. The library study carols across different floors. They are first come, first serve. So you can just go there and start using those rooms if they are open. And there are also group study rooms, which I highly recommend. The group study rooms, I can show you what they look like. That's a facility of the common study rooms. It will include a whiteboard and a computer, a monitor, and also a computer over here. So, and there are rooms, some for 5 people, 6 people, 8 people, and you can sign up those rooms and for you to use. You just reserve them, okay? And for those rooms, you requires a key and to borrow at the front desk. Okay, and so that's pretty much it. So that's how we support the research. And it's a lot. I don't want to overwhelm you with all the information. And I think one of the keys is to find who is your librarian. And throughout the semester, if you have any questions, please contact us. And I really mean it. You have to contact us because the campus is huge. We are support a very community, and I encourage you to be proactive and reach out to us whatever you need, and we are your partner. We want you to success because you succeed, and which means we are also very successful. Okay, thank you.
Thank you all. It's always interesting. I always learn something new at these presentations, so thank you. I'll open the floor. We have time for some questions. If you have any questions for any of our panelists. Yes.
Are the articles accessible from outside US?
Can you access the articles if you're offsite?
Oh yes, of course. There, it's your CookNet account, the same login. When you try to access remotely, and then a screen will pop up to ask you to log in. Yeah.
How is there training assigned for laboratory and being able to do animal research? How do we complete all of the training required?
No, for the animal research. Yeah. So for the animal research, there is the CD training that we're talking about. When you create an account and log in, there are different modules. So there is one that is responsible for conduct research. There is, when you go to the animal research, there is one that is common, and then there are a couple that are specific to the species, or if you're doing surgery, you have to select the right ones and then complete those. And then there is, to gain access to the animal facility, I think that's online through their website. And you will have to, for the animal research, your advisor is the one that will submit the animal protocol. They will add your name to the animal protocol.
Okay.
For human subjects, as a student, you can have your own human subjects protocol, and you can submit it and everything. But for the animals, it has to be under the advisory.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Long day.
So what if you're in another department looking for research opportunities, because maybe my department doesn't have it? How do I access those opportunities?
So we'd still, it would probably, the department itself is probably not the one funding it. So you would probably still apply through your department, because if it were awarded, they would route the grant through your department. So if you're looking somewhere, the opportunity could be federal, it could be state, it could be a foundation.
Well, I'm saying
so-
as far as in, I don't know if I'm saying it correctly,
Oh.
but if I'm in the School of Education,
Uh-huh.
there's no research opportunities that I'm interested in, but in psychology, there are research that they're doing that I may want to follow along with. Like, how do I get access to, like,
Oh, yeah, and depending on the lab, we certainly do have, for example, within psychology, we do have graduate students from other departments who take our grant writing course, for example, or get involved with labs within our department, so.
Would it be through a faculty member?
Yeah, it would be through the faculty member and their lab webpage, and you could check with that faculty member about maybe joining their research meetings and learning more about it. Yeah, sure.
Yes.
I have gone through the subject that you provide the assistance for, or that I can get help for. My department and lab is not included in those. So you still find someone or like.
You mean the library? You're saying your department isn't in the list?
It's not in the list. Okay, come talk to me right after that, and I will be able to find that out for you. Yeah.
Anybody else? All out of questions? Okay, well, let's thank our panelists again.
Thank you.
And next we have a presentation on environmental health and safety. So, I think I'm not sure we get that set up.
I don't know.
Oh,
thank you very
Yeah,
much.
it's this one.
Yeah, it was
You
so good
just
to meet you.
eject it.
Nice to meet you too. Very nice to meet you. Thank you for coming. I'll send you all the. Send me those.
Yeah. See. UHQR.
I got it marked. Yeah. You're using this one? Okay. Goodbye. I'll talk to you soon. Okay. Yes, I'll talk to you. Okay. Thank you again for all today. We appreciate it. So, you're awesome. Glad to see you. And good to see you back here. You want a plastic? Oh, you're very welcome.
Hang on. Maybe that's the one glitch trying to contact me.
Well, it's introduced in animals as well, so it doesn't matter.
Back to my.
Sure, that's fine.
Asked you to use the microphone because I had trouble hearing when they did it.
Well, just give us a curriculum contact. That would be helpful too, right? Right, right. We can wait. No, we can wait.
question. And so we have O2 In Young from Environmental Health and Safety, and he is going to talk about safety as you might experience it as a TA, teaching assistant, or a research assistant, some things that you should be careful of and be cognizant of while you're in this position. So my background is in chemistry, so I'm very familiar and very aware of the importance of this topic. And so I will turn it over to O2 to tell you about environmental health and life safety at
Good afternoon. I realize it's just after lunch, right? And the last time I tried to do this, I put so many people to sleep. And it wasn't even after lunch. So I'm going to try my best to be more lively. Ask me questions as we progress. What we're trying to share with you as TAs and graduate assistants, which I was, I wish I had this training before I started setting labs on fire. So I'm very sure this group is very learned. Nobody would do that. Let's look at the key things that is very fundamental. Workplace accidents and even most incidents are preventable, because we can prevent that. Empower everyone to work towards preventing those accidents. As a department, our goal is to create conditions, maintain conditions that ensure the safety for you, other students, faculty, even visitors that come on campus. And we hope that every day, everyone should go back home, hopefully better than how they came in, if not at least how they came here. Let's paint a picture of the university. I will challenge you to go out there and find out. We have 6 classes of occupational hazards. We have physical, chemical, radiation, biological, we have the psychosocial, and then we have ergonomic. The university is the only industry, very unique work environment that you experience all 6 in combination with a diverse population, someone like people that are very young, grad students, undergrads. We even have minors on our campuses because we want to motivate them to become like you, gain STEM education, enroll, become future professors and things like that. So to sum it up, we have multiple hazards in our research, teaching, and clinical environment. University operations create some hazards as well. Fire, biological, chemical, radiation, as I mentioned. There are academic and non-academic activities that are happening here. We have contractors, visitors, students, visitors on our campuses. The unique thing being at a university is you can conduct independent research with minimal supervision. And of course, there's academic freedom because we want you to be innovative. And with those come some unintended consequences if not properly addressed. I mentioned minors that are gaining STEM experience and motivation to enroll on our campuses. We have very unique location. There's I-45, if you're familiar with that. And if you're not familiar, we have rail lines very close to our campus. And these things carry hazardous materials. Some of them, if you remember the fire at Deer Park, the ones that have happened recently at Exxon Mobil Refinery, those things that are being made, they are being transported across rail lines and on these highways. So our university is very, very uniquely positioned. The university tries to empower you to learn, discover, and lead, and even engage other scientists in the process. Our department supports that by promoting a safe working environment for all researchers. And how do we do it? First, we take precautions to ensure that the workplace is reasonably free from recognizable hazards. We empower and engage each and every one of you, the faculty, the staff, the students, through safety, awareness, and education. We know that training and education is one primary means of achieving a safe and healthy working environment. So that's why we have these learning objectives. We're trying to cover this, hopefully in the next 3 hours. They just looked at me, 3 hours? Sure. We want you to recognize, understand the importance of workplace hazards. Identify potential hazards that exist in our workplace. How do we reduce the risk that come from these hazards? How do you prepare for and how do you react when there's an emergency? What are your rights, safety-related rights? And of course, with rights come responsibilities, right? Then what are the resources available to help you? And how do you report workplace hazards, accidents, and incidents? I want to thank Dr. Lawson because this is the first set of grad students that have received this under her leadership. She sees this as a very important initiative to empower you as you go back, learn, innovate, and engage other scientists. So let's see how we tackle this. The first objective, hazard recognition and identification. I'm trying to help you not to be like this guy, right? That was me a couple of years back. So we have all these hazards that you are seeing in this picture in some forms on our campuses. From the materials that we use, the environment, the equipment, the people can become hazardous if they do not work safely. The systems that we operate at the university mentioned the 6 categories: physical, chemical, biological, ionizing and non-ionizing radiation, psychosocial, ergonomical. Unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of injuries these days that stem from hazards that were little known at the university setting. Suicide rates are high. We know that from listening to the news. Back injuries, sitting at a long hours, reading, straining your neck, looking at the PCs. Before now, we used to flip pages of books, but now you look at the PC to read articles. What are we trying to accomplish? There is potential for exposure to all these hazard categories at a university. Not only at University of Houston, this happens at every other university. And this has impact on research, learning, and scholarship. When it comes to chemical hazards, before now we used to represent what is reactive, what's a toxin, corrosive, and all that. But the globally harmonized system, which we'll learn a little bit more about in the subsequent slides, came up with distinct, I call it universal language of communicating chemical hazards. If you go to Europe, Australia, Africa, this is the same language that is being used, both in transport and storage. We have health hazard, which could be carcinogen, respiratory, sensitizers, reproductive, target organ. We have the flammable gases, solid and liquids. We have irritants. Exploding bomb represents things that are explosive or self-reactive, right? So chlorine gas, where will that fall into? Very smart folks here, right? The reason I'm throwing that out is each of these doesn't represent a unique chemical. Each chemical could be an irritant as well as a skin corrosion, right? So looking at this, everything that we have here, this gives you an indication of the hazards that chemicals could present. Each unique chemical could manifest itself in different forms. When it comes to biological hazards, we knew about viruses, bacteria, fungi, parasites. We also know about the sources, from poison ivy to your rhinovirus. But also, these things come from microbes, plants, animals, and all other stuff. Working in the lab with some genetically modified organisms, potentially you could be exposed to some of this. But there's another one that is very urgent. If you're exposed to blood or other potentially infectious material, which we're going to be using OPIM in this presentation, you could contract one of those bloodborne pathogens. And what are they? These are microorganisms, viruses, bacteria, parasites, fungi. In the workplace, you are looking at HIV, whether contact with someone that has the parasite or working with biological organisms that contain HIV as part of your research. You're also looking at hepatitis B and hep C viruses as well. Physical hazards, from your slip, trips, and falls, having extension cords that run the whole length and you trip and fall, from heavy machines, heavy equipment, temperature extremes, heat and cold. Anyone came from Canada? Welcome to Houston, right? We have those temperature extremes in Houston as well. Electrical, this is the one that it's everywhere, even in your residence halls. It's everywhere. High voltage. Activities on campus, we have welding, cutting, could generate dust and fumes that when inhaled could be problematic. Motor vehicle accidents. You realize that we're on a campus and we have city roads that everyone drive across and students are crossing back and forth. Radiation hazards, from your laser radiation to radioisotopes to microwave hazards, strong magnetic fields. These things are present on campus both as part of academic and non-academic activities. Ergonomic hazards. If you're always on your computer with a mouse, there's that tendency that you're going to have some of those pain on your tendon as well. Hand-intensive work, upward grip postures. There's a step stool, but she's trying to stretch and get that thing on top of the shelf. Sitting in an awkward position on the PC. These things cause hazards that we, before now, were not known to be very prevalent at university campuses. And then I mentioned psychosocial hazards. This is a word play that I pulled from the public domain. The biggest one there is stress. How many grad students go through stress? Right? Okay. And we know that stress leads to so many unintended symptoms and consequences. So this is one of the ways of highlighting that there are resources on campus to help you deal with this. That way it doesn't result in unintended consequences as part of your learning and scholarship. I mentioned hazardous materials in transit along I-45. These are transport levels. For example, you may be surprised that they drive so many bad stuff across these routes. Probably because I'm knowledgeable and I know these things, so I'm always looking out for those signs. And once I see it, I change lanes, right? And unfortunately, when I-45 backs up, guess what? Trying to go through OST and get back on the other side. So these things go through our campuses in ways and manners we cannot stop because it's a city road. Now that we know, how do we recognize this when we see them on our university campuses? I'm going to provide you with some of the tools that our office have put in place, programs that we have to help you recognize these hazards where we know they are present. From door signage to inventories, safety data sheets, which depending on your age, you might know they were called MSDS before now. Training and written programs and labels that we have on containers. Let's go through them one by one. That's a typical sign you would see on a lab door, telling you who the PI would be, and of course, in bold letters, authorized personnel only. That's an administrative warning, not to scare you, but to tell you, hey, there's something behind this door. If you are not authorized, knowledgeable, do not go in there. And we try to provide information on the chemical hazards using the GHS symbols I showed you before. And then what PPE, personal protective equipment, is appropriate, emergency contacts. This is a QR code that if you scan with your phone, iPhone, Android, it will take you to a web page for you to get more information about that signage as well. And then there are some other hazards that may not appear on that sign. For example, radiation hazards could be laser radiation, X-ray, or radioactive materials. Could have biohazard, ionizing radiation like microwaves or strong magnetic fields. These things are not to scare you, but to alert you that there is some hazard out there. And then we have the GHS pictograms that I showed you before. I'm not going to go over that again. Just remember that if you are not familiar with what the pictogram is, you can always read what the precautionary statements are. Then we have, I call it the chemical Bible, which every manufacturer of chemical is required. If the chemical is identified with danger, caution, or warning, then it must have that accompaniment to tell you of all the 16 sections what is the safe handling information. And these things may already be familiar with most of you. For the benefit of those that may not have seen it before, I would just show you the 16 sections. One key thing, this is not a luxury. It must be readily accessible to any person using chemicals, either in electronic form or physical form. The 16 sections, identification, hazard identification, and all that stuff. If you pull up on the web, you can read more details about that. This is not a course for MSDS or SDS. I will give you information about future training opportunities depending on what line of research your lab is going to take you into. I strongly recommend, and in some cases it's required, that you complete those courses before you can complete your research successfully. There's an inventory. We have a template on our website provide to every lab and also assist with completing that information. It is required. If it is hazardous, then inventory. One thing that happens is you have a snapshot at a point in time, you conduct the inventory. How about when you add a new chemical to your stock, or the old stock is depleted or completely removed? Do you update your workplace chemical inventory? There's also HASCOM training for more information on this, and that information is available further in this presentation. I'll give you that information as well. Container labels. This is the universally accepted labeling system on containers, but because we are a university, you are going to find chemicals from the 1940s or probably 1900s. The labeling system did not conform with what we have right now. And in some of them, in some cases, we find out that you cannot even read what is on the chemical container. And if you find that, please, we are the resource on campus. Call us or send us an email. I'll provide that contact information. If you had that paper I provided on the desk, use that as well. Contact us. We are a resource. Remember, our office serves to support you in the mission of teaching, research, and scholarship and service, right? If you have a secondary container that you pour, let's say your bleach, acetone in there, guess what? If it is clear, it looks like water, right? It is prudent to write what it is legibly. I cannot write it for you because my handwriting is very terrible. But you guys have very good handwriting, so please write it in a form that your colleague comes in, he or she should be able to read and understand what that is. So HASCOM training, I did mention, we offer it through 2 portals right now. One of them is available through Human Resources. If you go to Human Resources page, training, they have training administration portal. You can take it there, and with the data integrates to our web-based database as well. And you can also take it from our training portal. It's a web-based training, so you don't have to go to class for that. Training and written program, we have a shared responsibility between our office and your supervisors. Our office will give you the written hazard communications program. We also provide training on awareness, like what we're doing right now. We also provide what I call limited substance and hazard specific training. And the reason for that is when you get to your lab, we cannot cover all the names of the chemical substances you're using. So that's why the responsibility is shared with your PI or supervisor to provide workplace hazard specific training. And also training on exposure or potential exposure to hazards. The thing that I like about this is the grad students are the champions doing this training. You are going to be at ExxonMobil tomorrow, you're going to be at Dow Chemical, and as part of your responsibility as an engineer, you're going to provide training, on-the-job training to everyone that comes on board under you. And you are also responsible for their safety. So this is a very good thing, integrating safety into the workplace. So take that responsibility seriously. What do you do if exposure occurs? What are the available protective measures? And understand how to acquire and use chemicals, and also understand how to read the SDS. I did mention bloodborne pathogens. What you are going to see mostly in public restrooms, most times you're going to see a sharps container with this type of symbol. Also in your lab, if we determine that your activities constitute exposure to bloodborne pathogens, or they could be potential for that, you're going to be provided with a sharps container to dispose of those sharps safely. There's something called universal precautions. And what it means is treat everything like potentially hazardous. So what you do in that case is protect yourself from blood or other potentially infectious materials. Wash your hands, dispose properly, do not reuse or recap needles, follow procedures for disposal, keep it clean as much as you can. Hand washing. This is something my mom taught me, and I'm very sure your mom did as well. I wish I had listened to her very well, because probably when I had food poison, maybe I wouldn't have had it. But it's very key. It's one of the universal protective measures you can take. Something as small as applying lip balm with dirty hands, there's a potential that you can contract disease. Wash your hands frequently. After contact with hazardous chemicals or chemical products, wash your hands even if you are unsettled or just feel like it, do it. Washing hands help prevent ingestion or absorption of chemicals and germs. We have some notable mentions here, and this is very common when we review our fire safety reports for residential apartments. We see this a lot. And you know, it's the good thing with the universities, we have people that are very creative, engineers. They like fixing things, right? Watch this. That's someone trying to, not on this campus, and if it happens here, which we have seen, someone is trying to repair a nick with an electrical tape. Come on, man. Just throw it out because this thing is going to catch fire at any point in time. We see frayed electrical cords and extensions. And I like this one because this is typically, it happens. I'm not going to name the places. These things are very, very dangerous. The engineers will tell you these things have rating. And if you overload, you can cause problems. So why experiment? So how do we reduce this? I like this. So great. We can reduce this to an equation of y equals mx plus c. So what is going to be the intercept or slope? Let's figure that out. Risk is a function of probability and severity. We have what we call the hierarchy of risk control, starting from elimination, substitution, engineering controls, administrative controls to PPE. I would tell you that the most effective is elimination. Down to personal protective equipment, that is the least. That just serves as a barrier between you and the hazard. It is not the most effective. So we're going to show you the Cougar story, how this is done on campus using Shasta and Sasha, right? Did you get to meet them? Great folks, great folks. Okay, so let's start with the elimination, and don't forget our risk management metrics. We're going to see how the severity and probability come into play in all this. This photo is taken from the archives. If you have very good eyes, you will read special collections at the University of Houston. That is, well, we think it is the original Shasta, right? Cougar. The best thing you can do is to eliminate, but we cannot technically eliminate the Cougar because there will be no University of Houston. So, but what we do, we cage that and pretend to eliminate, or take the Cougar to the zoo and put in a chained fence. By doing that, we have reduced both the severity and probability of Cougar getting out to hurt people. Or we can substitute with Sasha and Shasta. These are very friendly, right? They're not going to bite or claw and things like that. So in doing this, we have been able to play with the probability and the severity of occurrence to see how do we eliminate the risk or even make the severity as negligible as possible. So let's keep going to engineering controls. Instead of leaving this guy to just relax outside, this used to be the university center, but now the student center. What we can do is to provide a chain. If you can see very well, you can see the chain, right? That's a form of engineering control because it helps restrain the Cougar from running and attacking stray folks. The other thing is we put it in a very well welded cage. These are some forms of engineering controls in your research laboratories. We have the chemical fume hood, could be single or combination. We have the biological safety cabinet, depending on what you're working with. We have the glove boxes for very highly toxic and materials that should be in a net atmosphere. We have machine guarding for those of you in technology. We have interlocks on those machines so they would not run except you enable the run switch. Every lab building has local exhaust ventilation that the air goes from the outside to inside and gets ducted outside. That way, if there's a release of chemical accidentally, persons in the hallway would not be harmed in the process. Using all these require additional training. Then we go down to administrative controls, which basically we call it workplace controls. For our Cougar, they had only trained attendants at the time, petting the Shasta or taking it around on campus. That was a form of administrative control. What do we do in the workplace? We have training, policies, plans, procedures, manuals, standard operating procedures or research protocols, emergency action planning. All this put in place is helping you to reduce the severity. Our office, we have permitting for what we deem high-risk activities on campus. For example, if you're going to be working with biological, chemical, X-ray, laser radiation, radioactive materials, we provide permits. The fire marshal's office, which we work with, also provide permitting if someone is going to do some hot work, which potentially could set off fire alarms or create dust, unsafe environment. Confined spaces, these are oxygen depleted environments. You do not want to get in there without careful monitoring. Housekeeping. Have you ever seen this? Why would someone want to share fridge with chemicals and put your food in there? And of course, this warning sign helps to prevent that as well. Just like going to a classroom and they tell you no food is permitted. Do people still take food to the classrooms? I don't think so. Great. So housekeeping things is just things to help you kind of keep your workplace clean to reduce the severity and probability of risk occurrence. Let's go down to personal protective equipment. For our favorite Cougar, this guy, we're pretending that this guy is wearing this protective clothing so that this animal would not be able to attack. And that is not very safe because I can see his head. So that's not very safe. So what a PPE would look for things that are trying to prevent specific routes of exposure. We call it, excuse me? Yes, ma'am. So let's look at some forms of it. For inhalation, we have the mask. We have respirators, which you need fit testing before you can use it. Must be fit tested for the specific material and for the person. My mask would not fit you. Same thing, your mask would not fit any other person. And absorption, we look at gloves, aprons, face mask, face shield, and things like that, goggles. And these gloves, when you take chemical safety training, would definitely tell you that all gloves are not equal. There are some gloves for acids. There are some gloves for other universal use. So that it's a glove, it will not protect you. So if you're going to be working with substance, that's where planning comes in and training to help you narrow down to what it's going to really protect you. Other physical exposure, we have noise on campus. I'm not talking about from the music or the cars that drive by. As part of operations or research, noise is being generated and that needs to be protected against. You must be trained on proper selection and use of PPE. Is it boring? Okay, I'm trying to keep it lively so nobody will take a nap. We still have 3 hours to go, right? Okay. So to recap this, eye protection is a must, especially around hazardous material. When we say food protection, We don't mean this. That is not appropriate. We've seen that. Let me see, what did my daughter say this shoe is called? It's called flats. Flats, right? There's something like that, right? Flats, and for guys, it's loafers, right? Okay, so we had an accident on campus, an incident. Someone was using a glass pipette, trying to eject it, and the thing bounced on the edge of the fume hood. The sharp edge, unfortunately, poked right here, close to the ankle. The person was wearing closed-toed shoes, right? So that is why we're saying that, look, this is not, even though it's protecting your toes and your heels, this is still open. So we want to stress that message as much as we can to prevent accidents. The first thing when it comes to emergencies, to anticipate what could happen, plan for, and then you are more prepared to react when they actually happen. Let's look at this as a floor plan. How many people, when we walked in here, knew at least the second route to get out of this room? Where is the location of your fire extinguisher? In every place, when you walk in, there must be some designated routes of exit, and at least there should be two, a minimum of 2 exits. We have one right there, and we have another one back there. So if something is coming from that way, this is where I will go out first, and everyone will follow me. That's not true. And this must be updated when workplace conditions change. We are in a dynamic environment. The research world is very dynamic. What we do today may not work tomorrow. The processes today would change tomorrow, which is why we have to constantly update this information and train people on it. Special considerations: do we have visitors that just come in for a day or two? What if something happens when they are there? Do we have people that would need accommodation getting out of the building? Process controls for shutdown or standby. If anything changes, do we have a plan to rehearse at least weekly, monthly, before things happen? On your way out, if there's a chemical spill and you're running out, remember, good faith use of the fire alarm pull station is not an offense. It's when you're trying to play pranks, just pull it. That's also, be your sister's keeper, be your brother's keeper. If something spills in your lap and there's a lap next door and you run out, not tell anyone, not pull the fire station alarm, those guys might get choked. So you have to pull it if something happens, and be available for the emergency responders to tell them what happened so we can retrace steps. We have the UH alert, and there is these fire beacons that we have which will be flashing. Follow instructions, especially when you are getting out of the building, if you don't think you are, even if you don't think you are in danger. Fire, we can describe it as a triangle or tetrahedron. Basically, we need 3 things for that reaction to start burning. If you can eliminate one of those, we're in good shape. How do we plan or respond to fire? Again, at least 2 routes of exit from the building. This is an office from the university. Full disclosure, I am not going to tell you whether it's my office or not. But that picture is taken here on campus. Can you see the exit sign back there? Right, so how do we get there? That should not happen in any building on campus. Keep the exits, every exit route, egress route, and corridors clear and unobstructed. If you are trained on the use of fire extinguisher, yes, you can use it, and for the specific fires. There are several classes of fire, A, B, C, D, E, and I think K, right? I think that in the kitchen, the K happens most of the time, from frying. Great. So everyone has a fire extinguisher at home. That's great. Don't show your hands. But we assume everyone has an extinguisher or a fire blanket at home in the kitchen when something happens. To use a fire extinguisher, if you are assigned and trained, you pull the pin and the tamper seal, you pull the pin out, you aim, you squeeze, and you sweep at the base of the fire. And this is a great thing. It doesn't mean you are scared of the fire or you are a coward. Your back must always be towards the exit door when you are fighting a fire. So that if the fire cannot be contained, guess what? You run like hell and get out. That doesn't mean you are scared. You live to fight another day. How about that? Know the limitations of the fire extinguisher. In some labs on campus, we do an assessment and we'll recommend type of extinguisher. For example, folks that work with potassium, sodium, and things like that. The class ABC is not going to do anything back there. Fire blankets, I think those are kind of outdated. Not sure if people still have it. First aid kit is a very good thing to have. When we conduct our assessments, we look at the supplies. How many people know those supplies expire? And because they expire, that means you should replenish them. So we make recommendations when we find out they've expired. Spill kit is a very good thing to have because you can take care of the small spills, but the larger spills, our office is that resource. Give us a call and I'll give you the number. In a few minutes, you picked up one of those papers I had, you should have a number and an email address there as well. Safety shower, know the location of your safety shower and eye wash. This is a great thing to have, especially when you have a splash to your eye because you forgot to put on the goggles. It happens, okay? That's not to say you made a mistake. That's great. But you should know where the eye wash station is. It is located on this campus within 10 seconds from where you are or within 50 feet. That is the ANSI standard because you should be able to get there within 10 seconds and use it. But the challenge is if we have the pathway blocked with lab equipment, then when one eye is closed and there's a problem, how do you get there on time? Motor vehicle safety. How many people drive motor vehicles? And we all use seat belts. It's a great thing. At the university, as a state employee, it is very mandatory that you use seat belts while, if you go to Halliburton, ExxonMobil on campus, the speed limit is about 5 miles per hour while on campus, but guess what? You are still required to use a seat belt. It's for your own safety and others. Something that wasn't on this presentation, talking on the cell phone while walking. I see that a lot, and it's great. But I saw one video on CNN a while back that the person was on the phone and went into the water fountain. That was a good place to go into. So some of these things might seem very mundane, but it helps promote safety, not only on campus, but in your personal lives. So what rights and responsibilities are we talking about? As an employer at the University of Houston, through the chancellor all the way down to your graduate office, which Dr. Larson has taken very seriously, they facilitate to ensure that implementation and effectiveness of our safety programs are there. And the list goes on what we do in our office in partnerships to ensure those programs are very effective. Things like training and personal protective equipment when needed, providing you with notices and warning signs as appropriate, and ensuring facilitating compliance with applicable rules. I carefully did not mention that most of these things are required by the federal, state, and city ordinances to promote a safe workplace and become a corporate citizen. The university cannot do this alone. Your input is very, very critical because the chancellor is not going to walk the campus every day. You are the eyes and ears to let the chancellor through the university offices know what is working, what is not working well. As such, you have a long list of responsibilities. Be aware of the hazards, policies, and procedures in place. Proper attire and PPE, reporting safety and environmental concerns that are not resolved by your supervisory chain to our office. Ask questions wherever there are concerns. Obtain authorization and training before you do things that carry high risk. I've listed a few of them. If you see something that doesn't look right, please say something to your supervisor or our office. We take complaints as to help us promote a safe working environment. So let me tell you a story about the Houston Texans. Which one is your favorite team? If you don't mind, I'm going to pick on you. Football team. Yeah. Yeah. Dallas Cowboys. Okay. Who's your quarterback? Dak Prescott. Can you name the offensive lineman on that team? No. Okay, let's try it again. Anyone else? Favorite football team? No. Okay. I'm using that story to tell you about this department. Not only at this university, not only at this organization, the public health departments, we liken them to the offensive linemen on the football team. Guess what? If I call your team, you're going to tell me who the quarterback is. And most likely, except it's your brother, your cousin, or friend, you're not going to know the name of the offensive lineman. But these are the guys that block so that the quarterback can throw for the receivers to catch and score the touchdown. So this is what our office does. We support the mission of the university behind the scenes to make sure you have a safe experience leaving this campus. So as your offensive lineman, we provide resources, and we also provide you links to other resources both on campus and outside of campus, and we want to partner with you to ensure you have a safe workplace. Further training opportunities that we provide, trainings on chemical, biological, radiological, respiratory protection, vehicle safety, fire safety, and even the use of extinguishers through the fire marshal's office. There's a long list. If you go to our website, which I showed at the start of the presentation, you see a long list of trainings. Some of them are web-based, some of them are in-person. I strongly encourage you to utilize those resources that we, your offensive linemen, provide lines to help you have a good experience. Above all, we want you to workplace hazards. Whether you work in the office or in the lab space, in the field research, report your issues to our office. There is no penalty for reporting. Even if you did something that you think you bypassed a procedure, we want to know about it. We're not going to penalize you. We want to investigate and see what controls can we put in place to prevent this from happening to someone else and even you. Minor cuts, scrapes, anyone proposing to do animal research, yes, report the scratches from the monkeys to us and the rats. Yes, we want to know about those. Because besides getting medical attention, we want to see what do we put in place to prevent that from happening to other people. All workplace injuries and illnesses, unsafe practice or conditions. If you walk into a lab, a new lab, and you find out that people are using, I'm going to give you a very stupid analogy. Nobody does this again. Using pipette by mouth to pipette chemicals, right? Yeah, nobody does that anymore. If you walk into a lab and you find out that is happening, let us know. we're not going to call you out. We're going to try to work with the PI and the lab to see how can we make that workplace better for others. You're reporting to your supervisor immediately, and also notification to our office, because your supervisor is in the best position to address that. Now, if those concerns are not addressed, you can report to us, even anonymously as well. And why do you report? I've said that before. To assist, investigate, and mitigate, or even eliminate those hazards. Thereby, we prevent future injuries and illnesses. These are your contacts. Notify our office during business hours. You had the phone number on the paper, and it's also here. I will strongly encourage you to keep this phone number on your speed dial. There are 2 numbers you want to keep on your speed dial. This is our office, and this is the police. Oh, 13 is me. Well, this is the correct number right here. That will be corrected. So that's an unsafe event that should be reported as well. When accidents involve injury, the first thing you must seek medical attention. And when you are able, you let our office know so that we can investigate what happened, how it happened, what can be put in place to prevent future occurrence. Also, since most grad students, I think, are employees, something like that, you want to file a report with risk management, and that's the phone number. We also have an email address which you can email us for near misses. Everybody familiar with what near misses are? It almost happened. But guess what? If we know about the almost happened, we can put things in place to prevent that. We strive as much as we can to prevent human controls. How about that? I'm not sure about you, but when I rely on my kids to turn on the security lights or turn off the sprinklers, it doesn't work. Sometimes I leave in the morning, the sprinkler is on, and I go back home, and they're still on. So we try to put timers, engineering controls in place to prevent that from happening, even though I may not be helping them to become responsible citizens, but I'm going to save some bucks, right? So that's what we try to do. How can we prevent future occurrence? If there's an emergency, please contact the police department directly at this number. If it's something we have to get involved, they have a way of reaching us immediately. And you picked one of these when you were coming in. I wasn't sure how many folks, and I was told that the era of Scantron is over, right? So we did not want to give you a written test on Scantron. So you go on the website, you authenticate using that link, put in your credentials, course number EH06. Skip past all the instructions and videos and go down to the quiz, the bottom of the page, and take that quiz. And you will get your certificate emailed to you upon completion. I will also be able to pull a report to see who has completed the course. And I will let Dr. Lawson know that you did not complete the course. That's all I have for you. Any questions at this time? Or suggestions? Yes, sir. How often does it need to be repeated? The course, we are from effective this September. We're going to have an initial lab training and a refresher every year. The refresher is going to be web-based. The reason we're doing that is not to punish anyone or ourselves by providing the instruction. Practices change. We learn a lot from incidents that we can share with the whole community. Last year we had some expired ether. Chemistry students will understand that better. Expired ether. we had some waste practices that we would like to share with the lab community. And the best way to do that is through refresher trainings. What happened? What was the impact? What outcomes do we expect with different actions in the future? So we'll try to keep it to between 15 and 25 minutes. If you are using this from off campus, it's a protected resource on campus, secure resource on campus. You have to use VPN first before you authenticate. We get those questions a lot. So, did I answer your question? Okay, great. Any other questions, comments?
How do we know which quizzes to take for, like, because I'm pretty sure it's pretty different for different departments?
Yes, that is why we were not able to give very specifics. When you get to your PI, based on the research conducted in that laboratory, you're going to have some required trainings as well. For example, I know that some folks in some engineering course, they require them to take 3 courses which are available here before the start of classes. Yeah. Any other questions?
Will it say on our city training then what classes are required? Like, will we have required and not required classes?
For city training, no. Because city training is mostly for animal compliance. Yeah, this is more of lab research on campus. Yeah.
This is taken just for one single semester, or even if you are renewed for the TA for the subsequent semesters, we still have to take it for every semester?
As long as you're going to be doing some lab research, you will need a refresher every year. When you take it this fall semester, you're good till next school year. And I hope that you can stay around to take it for like how many years? You're doing your PhD, right? Sweet.
Oh, is there a deadline?
Is there a deadline?
Yeah.
Yesterday.
Yesterday.
As soon as you can get this out of the way, the reason why Dr. Larson wanted us to do this, we don't want this to be an obstacle between you and your classes or research. So as soon as possible, get this out of the way. That way you can focus on your academics and research. All right. Any questions for your offensive lineman? No. Comments? I would strongly welcome your feedback on how we can improve this for future students. Just an email. If you want to chat, you can call that number directly. That's great. But thank you very much for your time. And thank you, Dr. Larson, for having us. I hope that wasn't very boring.